A billionaire once told a broke student something that sounded completely insane. He said, "The biggest lie ever told to poor people is that you need money to make money." The student had exactly $12 in his bank account, but what the billionaire told him next would completely change the way he saw money forever. The student's name was Lucas. He was 23 years old. He had a laptop, a dream, and a startup idea he believed could transform the supply chain industry. For 2 years, Lucas had been working on a pitch deck. Perfect slides, perfect projections, perfect vision. But there was one problem. He had zero money and a long list of rejection emails from investors. One afternoon, Lucas walked into the lobby of a luxury hotel, not because he could afford to stay there, but because wealthy investors often passed through the building. He sat quietly in a corner chair, holding a worn-out leather portfolio. Inside it was his startup dream. Outside, it was reality. Exactly $12 in his bank account. Lucas lowered his head into his hands, and that's when someone sat down across from him. An older man. Simple navy suit, calm presence. Lucas looked up and instantly froze, because sitting in front of him was Arthur Vance, a self-made billionaire who owned massive logistics companies across the world. Lucas's heart started racing. This was the opportunity he had been praying for. He stood up nervously. "Mr. Vance, my name is Lucas. I have an idea that could revolutionize supply chains." Arthur nodded politely. Lucas quickly opened his portfolio and started his rehearsed pitch. "I just need $200,000 to build the prototype." Arthur didn't even look at the slides. Instead, he asked one quiet question. "Why do you need $200,000 to solve a problem?" Lucas blinked. "Well, to hire developers, rent an office, buy software licenses?" Arthur leaned forward and said something Lucas would never forget. "If you cannot make $1 without spending $1, you will never build a business." Lucas frowned. "With all due respect, sir, in the real world, you need capital. You need ads, tools, infrastructure." Arthur smiled slightly. "Lucas, you are trapped in something called the input-first mindset." Lucas looked confused. Arthur continued, "You believe you must put resources in before value comes out. But wealthy people operate differently. We use a value-first mindset." Arthur grabbed a napkin and wrote 3 words, then slid it across the table. "Service, system, scale." Lucas looked down. Arthur pointed at the first word, service. "If you are broke, this is where you start. Find a real problem someone is willing to pay you to solve. No office, no investors, no fancy software. Just your brain, your phone, and your effort." Lucas frowned. "But that's trading time for money." Arthur nodded. "Correct. And when you're broke, that's exactly what you should do." He tapped the second word, system. "Once you make your first $5,000, most people make a fatal mistake." Lucas leaned forward. "They upgrade their lifestyle. Better car, better apartment, expensive watch." Arthur shook his head. "They eat the seeds that were supposed to grow their future." Instead, Arthur explained something different. "You reinvest the money into building a system. Document your process, automate repetitive work, create templates, turn your skill into a repeatable machine." Lucas was starting to understand. "And then?" he asked. Arthur circled the final word, scale. "This is where empires are built. When a system works without you, you multiply it. 1 client becomes 10, 10 becomes 100, and suddenly, you're not selling time anymore. You're selling solutions at scale." Lucas stared at the napkin. Everything he had been doing for 2 years suddenly felt backwards. Arthur noticed the realization on his face. "You tried to build the perfect startup first." Lucas nodded slowly. Arthur smiled. "That's what smart people often do. They fall in love with ideas instead of solving problems." Arthur stood up and adjusted his jacket. Lucas quickly asked one last question. "What about investors?" Arthur laughed softly. "Investors don't fund ideas, they fund proof." Then he added one final sentence. "The poor try to raise money to prove an idea. The wealthy prove the idea, and then money raises itself." Arthur walked toward the exit. Lucas sat there staring at the napkin. 3 simple words: service, system, scale. For 2 years, he thought he needed $200,000. But suddenly, he realized something powerful. He didn't need investors. He needed one customer, and sometimes One customer is all it takes to build an empire. If this story changed the way you think about money, subscribe for more lessons about wealth, mindset, and success. Because sometimes the difference between staying broke and building wealth is simply thinking differently.